All right. Exercise 3.5. So this now carries on from 3.4. You learned how to do percentage increase and percentage decrease. Hopefully you also learned the shorter cut that I taught you guys to be able to multiply by the increase or decrease. It's a lot quicker. If you hadn't learned that, watch my video again. And I'll show it while we're doing it here. 3.5 is only different because you're applying it now. So you got to determine, is the increase a loss or is it a profit? And then how do you know? So here, let's fill in a couple of points here. So profit or loss is calculated by your selling price. So you buy it at a certain amount, and when you sell it, it's either higher or lower than your cost price. Okay? So obviously if it's higher, we then say it's a profit. If it's lower, then it's a decrease, so hence it's a loss. Example 1. Thanks, team. Eyes and ears towards the board. Boys, thanks. Out of respect, if you're not interested, then don't listen, but don't talk as well. Yes, you're actively taking notes or you're actively listening. It's one of those two, but you're not talking. All right, here we go. Example 1. Raiden operates a sports store at a fixed profit margin of 55%. So in order to operate the sports store, he needs at least a profit of 55%. Okay, so it's fixed there. Calculate the price he would mark on a pair of running shoes that cost him $120. So, it cost him $120 in order to buy the shoes. How much does he have to sell, okay, if he needs a profit margin of 55%? So, each shoe that he sells, there needs to be a 55% profit margin. Okay. Now in this case, because it says profit, clearly this is going to be a profit. But if it's a profit, it's going to be an increased percentage. So we know he bought it for $120. If I drew out the diagram, this is how much he bought it for. It's $120. Really? Not appropriate. Thanks. If he sold it for $120, he breaks even. That's 100%. That's 100% of what he actually started off with. But because he wants to make a profit margin of 55% in order to keep this shop running, he needs to sell it by an increase of 55%. Can you see I'm increasing it by 55? So the question, this is what I taught you in the last session. There is a quick way to getting your answer. Instead of finding 55% of 120 and then adding on top, you can just multiply by a certain percentage value and you get your answer straight away. This is how we do it. In total, he's not selling at 100%. He's selling it for more than 100%. What's the total percentage he's actually selling it at if he wants 55% profit? How much is he selling overall in terms of percentage? Yeah, it's 155. So 100 is breaking even. If he sold it less than 100, he's selling at a bargain, at a loss. But he's selling 155 in total. That's how much he's going to be selling it. So if he bought it for 120, he's going to sell it by 155% of 120. So the calculation is this. You actually need to work out what is 155% of 120. And that's a one-stepper on your calculator. Out of curiosity, you guys know what 155% as a decimal is? 1.55. And that was the idea. 100% is 1. 100% of itself is just 1. So when you say 1 point and then 55 or 55%, that's 0.55. So together, 1.55 means you had 100% with an extra 55% on top. Of means, what's of? Be careful. What's of? Times, not divide. A lot of students think of is divide. Of means times. So on your calculator, you're literally typing 1.55 times 120, and it will tell you what the selling price should be in one step. The alternative is what most students do by the exam is they do 55% of 120, then they take that number, add to 120 to get the answer, and it works. I'm just saying that for you on your own uses, that's the faster way to do it. So here on your calculator, this is what we're going to type. Well, not that. This is some other stuff from methods. So we're doing 1.55, which is 155%, multiplied to 120, and you get 186. So what this means, if he sold it for 186, that guarantees he makes a 55% profit. This makes it easier for you now, because if I said I want to make a 60% profit, what value should I sell it at? Then you simply do 1.6, because 1 is 100%. 60% profit means extra. So that's the 0.6. And if you did times by 120, that's the price you got to sell it at if you want to make 60% profit. Okay? And that hopefully gives you a better idea of how much quicker it is to do percentage increase or percentage decrease. Okay? For those who don't know how to find the decimals, you could also write it as a fraction. So say 155% just means out of 100. You could have done 155 over 100. And as a decimal, it will give it to you. Or you could have done 155 divided by 100, and it also gives you a decimal. But I'm trying to give you the logic to it that every time you pass 100%, it's then 1 point something. If it's less than 100, it shouldn't have a 1. Okay, so if I'm taking 30% off, then I'm only paying 70%. It should be 0.7. Okay? All right. So this is the skill that we're working on, exercise 3.5. You're just simply working out what's the selling price, what's the cost price, and you're working between profit and loss. So next one. Frankie bought a surfboard for $300. So they bought it for $300, and they sold it at 30% loss. Okay, 30% loss. So let's draw the picture. Bought it for $300. That's 100% price. But they ended up selling at a loss by 30%. Okay, so this is a loss. The question is, how much do they sell it for? 30% loss. Now, 100% is $300. So then how much are you actually selling it for? You're not selling for 100 and something now. You're selling it for 30% less. So how much is that as a percentage? How much are you selling of the product? 70%, because it's 30% less. Because it's 30% less, the person who's buying it is buying it for a certain price that's only 70% of the original amount. It's 30% less. So in one step, you just need to figure out what 70% of $300 is. And 70%, we know that as a decimal is? 70% as a decimal? 0.7. Very good. So on your calculator, it's just 0.7 times 300. Is it 210? Let's go. Whoa, what's going on with my calculator? Here we go. 0.7 times 300. And it is 210. You get 210. And that's the price that they sold. They had to sell at 210, so less than $300. And we know that is 30% decrease. And you can do that for any percentage you want. I could have said 45% discount, and you'd work it out just simply taking 45 away from 100, times it to the value, and that's what 3.5 is. If you understood that as a concept, 3.4, 3.5 merged together. It's about you now problem solving cost price versus selling price. Okay? Let's try another one. Example 3 now. This time, a clothing store buys t-shirts at $15 each and sells them for $28.95 each. Okay, the question is, what is the percentage profit made? Because we can clearly see 15, bought for 15, but you're selling for $28.95. You're clearly making a profit. But what's the percentage profit in this case? Okay, so here we go. I'm going to write it out. We know it's a profit. We know that we bought it for $15, but you're selling it for $28.95. So how much did you gain from one shirt? How much did you gain in one shirt? Yeah, so I'm saying you got a t-shirt for $15, and if you sold it for $28.95, how much profit did you make? $13.95. Yeah, so in terms of value, You bought for 15, you sold for $28.95, then you only made $13.95 profit. That's what I meant by how much. Okay, so how much profit did you make? You made a profit of $13.95. If you're wondering how I got that answer, I just took the selling price, 28.95, take away 15. And that's the difference. So then you know, oh yeah, you made a profit of $13.95, right? But we want to know what that is as a percentage, especially if you're a business owner later on. You want to know overall, if you sold 10 t-shirts of one type, 50 t-shirts of another, overall, you want to know your profit gain in percentage, not value, okay? Because when you're working with bigger numbers, percentages tell you more. So here, how do you work out percentage profit? This is last lesson. You looked at percentage change and percentage error. So here we go. We started off with $15. That's how much you spent. You spent $15. But you gained $13.95. That's the profit you got out of the $15 that you spent. So this, to change it to a percentage, you times by 100. And that was exercise 3.2. 3.2 was the very first one for the year 12. How to convert to a percentage? Simply times by 100. But the proportion is what students normally get wrong. So here, you know it's profit of $13.95. It's what goes in the denominator. Most students put the last number they see. So they do 13.95 out of 28.95. It's never that. It's always the original, the very starting point. How much did you start off with? And then whatever you gain or lose from there, it's out of that proportion, not your final one. Okay, so that's why I had a formula on the previous exercise. It was actual change divided by actual value times by 100. Okay, so check those notes if you haven't seen it. But here we go. Let's work out the percentage. So 13.95 divided by 15. So that's the proportion. Times by 100 to convert it to a percentage. And that tells us 93. But it's not 93 only. It's 93%. So what does that mean? That means for every t-shirt, you're making 93% profit. Which makes sense because that's almost an extra $15 profit. And if it's $15 how much you bought it, that's 100%. You almost made 100% profit. Okay, that's the idea. So it makes sense that it is around 93%. So far, so good. Okay, because that kind of revises chapter 3.5 or exercise 3.4, increase, decrease. Now on the next page, I did do a lot of guidance for those who want to have a crack at it themselves. You can do the question yourself without following my guidance. But I'm going to leave it to you, and then we're going to stop there because that's all you need to do. You need to learn how to do increase, decrease, and then apply it into a profit or loss scenario. Okay? Flip over the page. I'm going to leave the question here. You can fill it in the guidance if you need it. Otherwise, I want you to try this question without the guidance first. See if you can problem solve it to get to the answer. So what's the question? The question's asking, if Max bought a car for $6,000, obviously a second-hand car, he sold it to Janine for 80% of the price he paid for it. Okay, so he's selling at a bargain. Janine then sold it to Jennifer at a 10% loss as well. Then Jennifer sold that car to James for 75% of the price she paid. A, calculate the price that James paid for the car. B, calculate the total percentage loss on the car from Max to James. That type of question can be an exam type question for 12s. For 11s, I could put that on an exam because that really ties in one question. I can learn, are you good at your percentages? Do you know how to apply it? And that ties everything that you need to know from just chapter 3. Okay, so that's the kind of question that I'd like you to be able to work through. So not just finding out percentages, but can you problem solve along with it? So how much of a percentage loss overall, and how much did James really pay for the car? Okay, so James is the last person. How much did they pay for the car? Started off with $6,000. What's the final answer? Now, my guidance will teach you how to go through that, but I'd rather you try to do it without my guidance first, and then use my guidance to help. Okay, I'll fill in the answers afterwards, but we'll stop there. I'm going to pause the video, and then